Okay, so to start off, we click on the CX programmer. Once you open it, we're going to configure. So press exit. I'll open up the full screen. Click on the blank sheet of paper here for a brand new file. When that opens, there's some configuring to do. So you can put whatever your name you want. I didn't put the name in previously. It doesn't really matter. Here we'll write down lab 3 chaser. All right. The PLC is the CPM1A. Settings, we have 20 IO. So we have 12 inputs and 8 outputs. So we have a combination of 20. Press OK. Then we have to choose a means of communicating through COM port, whatever COM port you hooked it up to in your computer, in my case, COM3. Press OK. And now we're set. Not a legal name, probably because there's a space here. Okay, so now I'm going to start programming. So these little icons here are to add contacts to my ladder. Since I'm starting with the phantom state S0, they're normally closed contacts. So I'm going to close the contact here, or put a normally closed contact. The address for the first one is 01. When I press enter, the second screen opens up and asks me for a comment. The comment for now is going to be S1 because 200.01 we're going to associate with state 1. Click OK. We'll put another contact here, 200.02. Click OK. We're going to call that S2. Another contact here, 200.03. So we only have 3 states for this lab here. So the next thing we have to install in this network is an output, and the phantom state is 00. We're going to name it S0. Click. Now, before we get too far, before I forget, what we're going to do here is where it says new program. See how I have one section here? This is the section I'm programming. Well, this section here, if I click on it, I'm going to rename it translation. Okay, or basically because I'm taking my Grafcet and translating into ladder. Okay, the reason I want to do this is I want to separate all 3 sections. I'm going to go to new program. I'm going to right click. I'm going to insert a section. This section here will be to activate outputs. Press enter. So I have translation, which is the page I'm on now, activate outputs. And since I have timers, I'm going to go back to new program and right click again, insert a new section called timers. So I'm going to divide things nice and neat. My main translation from Grafcet to ladder, activate my outputs and my timers. So activate my timers, I've got nothing here. Go to timers, I have nothing yet. Go back to translation. This is basically my Grafcet being translated. So my next network would be, and I'm just taking this directly from what I translated from Grafcet to ladder. So what I have here is an S3 or 200.03, which is S3. And then I have a timer, TIM002. And then I have a coil. This coil here is 200.01. Enter. I already have the S1 there because I've already used it before, so it remembers what I used. Click on OK. And now I have to maintain. What do I maintain with? Itself. What do I deactivate with? So normally closed here. The next state, 200.02. And I close it, and that's it. Okay. Since it's state 1, I'm also going to need the S0 here. Also, if you noticed, I have my normally open, normally closed, and here I have a vertical line, horizontal line. So what I'm adding here is, and to add a line right here, I've got to click on the right-hand side of it and press. If I press again, I get rid of it. So I'm going to add another branch at the bottom in parallel, and that's going to be my S0, my phantom state to initiate the graph set. Okay, and now I'm missing a vertical line here, a horizontal line, sorry. So I'm going to put in a horizontal line. So that's my first state, S1. So now I've got a few other states to put in. You could do a bit of cutting and pasting too. If I were to take this, control cut, and then control paste, then I have to do a bit of modifying because I had the phantom state here, which I don't need anymore, but I can just delete it and delete it. You got to be careful when you do this because a lot of you forget to change certain things. So I'm going to go through it as I would if I had put everything step by step. So in other words, this guy here is 200.02. What activates 200.02? The previous state. The previous state was 01. The previous condition for this was timer 000. Maintain with itself. And deactivate with the next state. The next state, which is the last state, is 03. So I'm going to copy this one instead of the previous one. I'm going to go back to I'm going to go to the third network, paste it. So now all I have to do is change some addresses. So this is for state 3, click, state 3, change it. So to activate state 3, what do I need? Previous state. So previous state is state 2. Previous timer for 3 is timer 001. Maintain with itself. So this is 03. And deactivate with the next state. There is no fourth state. From 3 it goes back to 1. So this will be state 1. Okay. So this is basically all my translated graph set into ladder. Now I have to activate my outputs and my timers. So on the left here, translation. This is just to neatly put things into different compartments. Okay, so you don't have everything and you're scrolling down 100 lines of code. What you're doing is you want to manage your graph set here, which is basically managing your states. And then you want to activate your outputs. So you double click on activate outputs. I have nothing here, but this is going to be just for my outputs. So I'm going to click, put in a normally open contact, 200.01. If you remember from the graph set, 200.01 or state 1 turns on the green light. In my case, the green light is 10.04 because that's what it was wired for. Green. Okay. And this is not much, so I'm not going to cut and paste. I'm just going to put in the next one. So 200.02 is going to turn on my yellow light. In my case, my yellow light is 10.03. Type in yellow, give it a name, which the last thing you want is all kinds of numbers here with nothing labeled, especially when you start having push buttons eventually with the conveyor. You want to be able to put as many comments as possible because over time you're going to forget what you've done. State 3, so 200.03. That turns on my red light. In my case, the red light is wired to 10.02. Okay. Red. Okay, so this is my outputs. The only thing I have left to do is my timers. So I'm going to click on timers here. Double click. State 1, 200.01 is going to turn on a timer. So my timers, we've never done timers before. We're going to click on this guy here, which is a box. So you have other instructions aside from timers. I'm going to click here. I'm going to put in timer. I'm going to go to details. On this first line, I'm going to put which one, which memory location. So I'm going to put Tim 000. And I'm going to click right below this one here, right here. I'm just going to click, and that's where I'm going to put the time. But remember, it's BCD or binary coded decimal. So I've got to put the hashtag or pound sign, and then what did I want? Half a second. So 0005, that's a half a second. Now I press enter, and it places it at the very end. I have timer 000 for half a second. So I can do the same thing I will cut and paste this one here. Control copy, control paste, and control paste again. But I've got to go back and make sure that this guy here is 2 or state 2, and I have to increment the count for my timer here. I'm going to put a 001, and this is my 3rd state that turns on 002. Just to confirm, yeah, 002. Okay, so that's my whole program. I've got nothing else to program. I have the main translation from Grafcet here, translating my states, activate the outputs, and the next section, my timers. So it's very easy. It'd be a lot easier to troubleshoot this way to try to find the problem. So right now, my PLC is actually executing a different program. What I'm going to do in order to download what I've just done is to open up lines of communication. So this is a good sign to see whether or not I configured it properly, because if you haven't configured it properly, it won't start communicating. So good sign, it's communicating. Now what I have to do is go to this icon here, which is download the program I've just written onto the PLC. So I click on it. It's going to ask me a series of questions. So this command will affect the state of the connected PLC. Do you wish to continue? Yes, because I want to, it's okay for me to stop executing whatever's already executing right now. Make sure that there aren't any problems in the PLC if the PLC is stopped. So this is for machinery or whatnot. So in my case, I mean, there's nothing. This is just for labs, for experiments, right? So there's no danger. So it's transferring, download successful, acknowledge. Make sure that there aren't any problems if the PLC is started. Well, like I said, I only have one motor here. There's no mechanical danger for me. I'll just press yes. And also, right now it's on monitor mode. I also have program mode. On program mode, it actually stops executing. So it's no longer executing the actual program. Okay, but it's still, this program is actually in the PLC. So to run and monitor meaning that I get feedback. As you see on the screen, the contacts are closing. Right now, I'm on the timer section. If I go to translation, so you see how I'm going. This is good to have, this whole phantom state. It tells me what state I'm in. So now it's only half a second, so it's going pretty quick. But look, state 1, state 2, state 3. State 1, state 2, state 3. So it's telling me everything's working properly. State 1 is on, then state 2 is on. After 2, it's 3, and after 3, it's 1. So everything's working properly here. I can have a look. Everything's working properly on the output side as well. You will have an e-stop to stop the inputs and outputs, so that even though the PLC is still on and executing the program, if there were an emergency, it turns everything off. I'm going to turn it back on. So right now, everything's working. So there is no troubleshooting to do, but if you would troubleshoot, the first thing you would start with is to see whether or not any of these states are coming on with other states, because it shouldn't. Remember with Grafcet, if you have a state that's on, the other one should be off, with a linear Grafcet anyway, until we get to more complicated ones. So this is basically the whole program. There's nothing else that needs to be done for this one here. So when you start with the blank sheet on the upper left-hand side. If you want to open up an existing file, you would click on this one here. It asks you if you want to save it. I haven't saved it yet. So instead of saving it that way, I'll just show you, just like any other file, you would go to File and Save As. In my case here with this computer, I'm just going to save it on the desktop. I'm going to name it Lab 3 Chaser. And now it's saved. So if I go up, open it up, Lab 3 Chaser, right over here. I already had one that was called Lab Chaser. I've got this one here as well. Okay, so it's saved. So then I can log off. Okay.